And here we are, it's March of 2026. What has changed in cyber sales in the last year? What's harder today than it was a year ago today?
You want to go? Yeah. So I'm going to tell you a story, which will be my answer. So I was with the director of DIA, and this applies across any industry, B2B, B2G. And a salesperson came in with their VP, of course, because you're meeting with the director. And you always bring your VP in because you want to make sure your VP knows you're doing your job. And so they sat down with their PowerPoint, and back then, because you're in the DIA, you can't bring computers in, so you bring printed PowerPoints. And so this young rep starts in after the introductions, and I'm there as a technical advisor, and the director flips through the PowerPoint, pulls one page out, pulls a different page out, takes the whole stack and sets it up on another stack. And he says, "Can I just stop you? Let's just talk about these two slides. This is your unique value proposition, and this is your ask slide. Let's just focus on that." Poor sales rep didn't know what to do with themselves. Because he said, "Sir, if I could, I'm going to get to that slide. If we could just go back to my deck, and I'll walk you into getting to that value statement." And he said, "No, I don't need you to walk me to get to the value statement. I want you just to, how long have you been working for the company?" He said, "I've been here about 2 years." He said, "Okay, do you know the product?" "Yeah, then you shouldn't need to walk me into it. Let's just go right to why I care." And that, afterwards I asked him, "Director, why do you do that?" He said, "Listen, there is no difference in product anymore." This is what he said. "There is no difference in product features anymore. We have all matured to the level that whatever differentiation you think you have in product cannot be proven easily in a meeting. It can only be proven in mission. So if you are pitching product features and functions, you've lost before you've even started the conversation." His point was, you have to be selling why I care to my mission. That is what has monumentally shifted in this industry. We don't have the luxury of picking multiple products and just saying, "Hey, I'm going to fill this one little feature gap." We don't have the money, and we don't have the complexity, and the risk tolerance is just not there anymore. So if you don't understand the value that you're delivering to their mission and what their mission is, you will not make that sale. You will get lots of meetings, but people sign on the dotted line based on risk and fear. And you will not overcome risk and fear if you don't sell customer mission.
That's a great point that you. So this being said, with all the complexity and AI, what do prospects and customers really want from selling professionals right now? So Craig, why don't you start, and then Mike, I'm interested. Carasoft speaks to tens of thousands of customers on a daily basis. Give us your insights on what do they want and need from the people watching today's panel discussion.
So I think that, going back to my story, I'll just add to it, which is they want your insight to where you see value in their mission. That's what they want. When anybody comes into your environment and they say, "I have a belief. I believe that I can solve a problem that I think that you have," that will get more doors open than, "Let me tell you about this product and the great features we have and the fact that we're in the magic quadrant," right? I mean, that's the way we sell. "Oh, we've been around for 30 years. We're in the magic quadrant. We're the leader in. We've got this great product. We've got AI, agentic AI. Agentic AI. Everybody's got agentic AI. Everybody thinks their agentic AI is going to be, if we just say agentic AI, we'll get the meeting." Everybody is saying agentic AI. And the customers are just numb to it. So what they want is something that you're going to bring to them that matters to them. And if you're not doing the research, in the book Craft that I wrote, the reason why the CIA made me such a great trainer is you never walked into a mission not knowing every aspect of that mission. Who had access? What was their motivation? What was their influence in the organization? If you walked out and engaged with somebody before you knew any of that, people died. And so now you turn around and go into sales. We don't do any of that research. We get a number and a name, and we call up and say, "Let me tell you about this great product we've got. We're in the magic quadrant, blah, 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 blah." And the person just can't wait to get off the phone. They just can't. I'll tell the story in the book about this young man who came to my door and knocked on the door and said, I didn't even get a word. I said, "Hey, how can I help you?" And he just started in with his pitch about how he could pave my driveway. And he's running on, and I'm just sitting there waiting for him to take a breath, and I just pointed to the driveway. And I was like, "I just had it paved 2 years ago." He didn't even look at the driveway. He was just going door to door trying to sell something, not even knowing if I needed it. A lot of times I feel like that's what we're doing. AI is the most impactful tool we've ever seen in the history of the world to do great research before we show up about who the customer is and what their mission is. And so we've created, at least in Trellix, based on the book, we created a craft gem. Everybody in my company uses it. I briefed it at sales kickoff. One of our young sellers, Preston Porter, so hopefully he's watching. Preston Porter said that since he's been using it, 8 out of the last 9 meetings has resulted in a demo or a proof of concept. Not because of Craft the book and Gem, but because he walked in with this is what I believe. This is my hypothesis of the value that I think I could deliver. And that resonated and got the meetings. Can I say something about that? That's a really interesting point. You know, OneGov, GSA, they're out there trying to work directly with vendors to build relationships. I'm sure you guys have seen that.
A little bit.
A little bit. And, you know, one of the challenges with that, from a government perspective, is something you just said, which hit me, which is the industry changes so much, acquisitions, mergers, individuals within companies, but really it's the Caresoft and the partners that become that stability that hasn't changed for a long time. Because the ecosystem of companies that you guys manage change a lot.
Right.
Change a lot. And so if anybody from the government is watching or from GSA, that is a value that you can't put a dollar amount on. And so everything is being measured by, like, maybe we could save 5% by cutting partners out or distributors out, but you're losing, and we said this directly to OneGov, you're losing an ecosystem that companies like us have already adapted to. We've already adjusted our business so that we rely on Caresoft for all of our business. Like Trellix is a all-in Caresoft business. And so if we remove that, it's going to go back to that instability they had before Caresoft. I'm not trying to plug you guys, but you know I'm a big fan.
What is your recommendation for the audience? How do you build credibility and show customers that you know their mission and business needs better than anybody? You know, who has any competitors? Obviously. Give us your insights. And write this down if you haven't been writing down.
Every person in this room has a personal responsibility for every person they sell to. Period. If I make an investment in you and you make a promise to me and that promise is not fulfilled, it isn't your company I think about. It is, but it's about the person that sat across from me and said, will you sign on the dotted line? Right? And if we don't feel that, if we don't feel that personal responsibility, then all we're doing is just hawking stuff. And so, you know, I've stayed at a company that I didn't want to stay at because there was a project I sold that wasn't yet delivered, that was in trouble, that I knew that if I left, I could never walk in that door again and face that same customer at another company. That is the responsibility of sellers. It's a personal responsibility to deliver value to that company. Some things are outside of your control. I've had unsuccessful delivery of services and products that I've sold. But it isn't because I gave up. It's because circumstances, environments, people, other things outside of my control prohibited that from being successful as much as I tried. The customer knows that. They don't blame me, they blame others. And that's what you have to get to in sales. If you get to the point where you're not worried about getting the contract, you're worried about that personal success of the person that you're sitting across from, man, you are going to have one hell of a great sales career. Can I just say one thing about it? So Caresoft, a lot of the folks in the room are from Caresoft. How do you have personal responsibility when you're on the phone and you're selling on the phone, right? It's a little bit of a disconnect. So what I would say is that if you run into a customer that has funding, I write about it in the book, funding, value, the person wants to change, what we call obsession, and the window is open. The window of opportunity is open. All you can do is make sure that you're picking the right customers to sell to. That's your job. Don't try to sell something they don't need because you just have to sell something. I'd rather you focus on the customers that need that thing, that have the right window, that have the funding and that want to change. Then it's up to the company to deliver on that value, right? But you've done your job. You've made sure you're selling to the right person and the right company. Then it's the vendor's responsibility to deliver on that value.
You know, I'm going to ask the next question, slightly different than we prepared. What's one habit that has helped you set yourself apart? Again, you're all top sales professionals, leaders in the industry. What's a habit that you have enabled that has helped you get to the level where you are? Start with Cyril, let's come back.
I would say something that the agency taught: be in the room. And I say it on stage. I said it at SCO. You have to be in the room when you're having a conversation. Too many times we are thinking about the next question we want to ask, the next slide we want to present. How do I get them to say yes? And it's all going on in your mind, and you're not actually in the room listening. You're not watching what's going on. You're not watching where the influence is in the room. You could pick up on this, right? I was never the important person in the room in the agency. I was a techie. I sat in the back of the room, and vendors were so focused on the CISO, they didn't realize that he wasn't the economic buyer. The economic buyer has grown to be like 10 people. And the techies in the back of the room, when you all left, and the CISO turned around and said, "What do you guys think?" We went, "Pfft." Nobody ever took me out to coffee. Nobody ever asked me out to lunch. And yet we were deciding for you whether or not they bought your product.
All right, gentlemen, let's just wrap it up. 30 seconds, your final message to the audience. Whatever you haven't said that you want to get across to these enthusiastic, energetic selling professionals. Who here wants to take your sales career to the next level? Okay, very, very good. All right, give me your final thoughts. Sarah, why don't you go with us? You start and bring it back this way. Final thought, what do you need to get across? 30 seconds or less.
You know, you used the word craft. It's been said up here many, many times. I actually named the book Craft because this is a craft. That's what we do. It's also trade craft from the CIA because I actually tell stories from the CIA, but so there's a little pun on words, but this is a craft. It takes work. I love that you said always be learning. I read so many books, right? And I still learn from so many different people. I'm still, have curiosity, right? Is this superpower? Curiosity is a superpower. Anything that anybody tells me that I don't know, I'm on AI asking, what the hell is it? Because I'm curious. My daughter says, we drive down the road and I'll say, I wonder how this system works, blah, blah, blah. And she goes, why do you care? Why are you AIing that? Like, it's not going to change anything in your life. I go, I'm curious. Like, I just want to know why it works. Like, that's who I am. You need to be curious about your customers' problems. And then you'll bring really cool value to them. Perfect your craft.